Thank you for listening to this episode, and follow the podcast on social media by finding @Prestigious_pod. And if you'd like to be coached on how to live a more prestigious life, you can reach out to me, Chris Bean, @ChrisBeanOfficial, or by emailing the podcast directly at prestigiousInitiative@gmail.com. Lastly, sign up for our newsletter either through social media or on our website. This is the Prestigious Initiative. Welcome. I'm Chris Bean. Today, I have an extraordinary guest with us, Zach Oehlman, a global business magnate and digital nomad. Zach, it's fantastic to have you on the show.
Thanks for having me, Chris. I'm excited for today's conversation.
Very well. So, Zach, can you give us a little bit of background about who you are and kind of what brought you here today?
Yeah, and so I grew up in a small town in Northwest Indiana on a farm, 3,500 people. This is sort of going to be my life. I wanted to stay on the farm. Then my dad died when I was 12, took over the farm, and I realized, that wasn't for me. I wanted to travel the world, help people, and make money. And so I really didn't know what to do. I picked up a book by Peter Lynch, which was still is a world famous investor, and I started learning about making money, right, outside of trading your time for dollars. And so I went to school for finance, graduated at the top of my class there in Indiana University, and I graduated in 2008. And if anyone remembers 2008, that was a horrific time to be a graduate, let alone a finance graduate. I was competing against all the Morgan Stanley, the Lehman Brothers companies that went out of business. And so I actually worked for 2 years for free just to get experience on my resume. I would drive from Northwest Indiana to Chicago every day. Again, just for that experience. And then I finally landed a job working as a valuation consultant. And I had no idea what that was, but I took the job and I learned so much inside of that. I learned how to value companies. I learned how to value pretty much anything that can create a cash flow. Ended up getting a job working for one of the best companies in the world, doing M&As, economic damages, very high-end theoretical finance. Became a published author in that world, and I hated it. I was like, this is the world that I wanted, and I hated it, and I didn't know what to do because I worked 10 years for this life or that life. And someone said, have you ever thought about investing in real estate? And so I started that, quit my job, started investing in real estate, created a community of 1,000+ people there. Got on the board of the education that we sold. We were responsible for 30,000 people nationwide. Then I started buying and selling businesses, starting businesses, and that's what we do today. We have a portfolio of businesses where we help people start, scale, and sell them, and then reinvest that money back into real estate.
Wow, that's quite the story there.
Yeah.
I got all kinds of interesting points. So it's interesting that you're from Indiana. I'm right now in Illinois, just south of Chicago.
Where at?
In Bradley.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
I would drive from Valparaiso area to Downers Grove twice a week. For my mastermind, I would drive for 2 years. I drove from a year. I drove from Couts, which is south of Valpo, to north side of Chicago every day through that traffic. And then the second year I moved there, I was still working for free because I hated the traffic. But yeah.
So what type of was that, like like uh, like 2 hour commute?
It was like I'd wake up at like 4 in the morning, and so I could miss all the traffic. I was on the north side of Chicago at 6 a.m.
Ooh. Yeah.
Yeah. And then
Wow.
I'd leave in the afternoon. I'd stop by. I started taking math classes at PNC in Hammond. So I was
Okay.
going to go for my PhD in finance. And so I'd wake up and I'd come home Friday and I would just fall on the couch and sleep. I was so exhausted.
I can imagine. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, so you had this big dream job that you wanted. You did
Uh-huh.
all the work to get this job. You lived in this job, and then realized, well, that's not actually what you wanted. All right. So I got a couple kind of questions around that. It's interesting. I think when we have this thing that we've built up in our head, this thing that you
Right.
want, and then you do the work for, and maybe it's something you want, maybe it's something somebody else told you that you should want, or you think you should want based on whatever society pressures are placed on you. And then you do all the work to hope to achieve this thing.
Uh-huh.
it's not very many people who actually achieve that. So congratulations on that. And then it's
Thank you.
even less people who realize once they achieve that that's not actually what they want. And then it's even less people who do something thereafter. So I guess my question is, what were the signs that you were seeing when you were in that life that made you realize or helped you come to the realization that, that's not where you want to be at. That's not what you want to do.
Um, I would say it was my desire to see what's around the corner. Growing up on the farm, I was always exploring. As a kid, I'd go and explore the woods, and then I'd ride my bike as farther, and then I got a four wheeler, I'd ride even farther, and then I got a car, and I'd go into the next state. And it's like, what's next? What's next? I love the adventure of life. And so I remember I moved to Chicago. That was a big what's next. And then I got this job, and that was a big what's next. And then when I landed there, it was like, this is it. There's no what's next. I already know what's next. I'm going to come in here for the next 40, 50 years, whatever. And this is going to be it. And so I started getting depressed, and I was drinking every night. Um, and I didn't like see a path to what was next other than maybe moving up in my company. But they told me, they told me I didn't have enough gray hair. I was really good at what I did. And I get it now, 10, 12 years later, I totally get it now. But, we're doing $1 billion deals, and they're like, you got to have some wisdom. And I had the intellect. I didn't have the wisdom though. And so for me, it was, I couldn't see, the momentum and the growth slowed down. Right. And so that was, I started becoming depressed. I wasn't, emotionally excited about it. I didn't see a path forward. And so, it really messed with my emotional being, my well-being.
Okay. So that's really interesting because I would imagine that, let's guess, 25 to 35% of the population right now, just a snapshot, is living in a life that's like that. Right? They're living that life, and they're coming home, they're not feeling like they're getting fulfilled from their day to day. And maybe it's their day to day, at work, maybe it's the day to day at home, maybe it's everything all inclusive. So if somebody listening to this is going through something like that, how could they follow in your footsteps? What type of steps did you do to remove yourself from those situations and then find that what's next in order to go and tackle that?
Well, I started, one of the hardest questions I've ever had to ask myself is, what do I want? Right. And I ask people that now when I work with them. I say, what do you want beyond the vanity? And I say, you can't say money or time, right? Because that's typically what people say. I want more money or I want more time. And I'm like, well, what are you going to use the money for? And they have no idea. The vast majority of people have no idea, right? What are you going to use the extra time for? And it's so surface based. People don't think about it. And I actually, I remember I paid somebody $8,000 to ask me, what do I want for 30 minutes every week for a year? It was a coaching program. And it took me like 2.5 months to even be able to answer that question because I was so surface. And so if you're listening to this, I would ask you, what do you want out of life? And, you can't say time or money, right? And just get really real with yourself. Take some time. I hired a personal development coach. I started reading personal development books. I had no idea what those were. I joined a community of people that were going for it in life. And it was like, oh, these people are legit happy. Like they're actually taking their life on. They didn't, I thought college was the end of my learning. And oh my God, it was the beginning of it. And so I read more and study more and take more programs now than I ever have. And I surround myself with people who challenge me, who are honest with me, who care about me. And so I would say create a community of people with big visions and big minds, and that are honest with you, right? And it's a superpower.
So, okay, part of that, especially early on, do you feel like you're faking it? Do you feel like you are living in somebody else's shoes, hoping to someday be able to fulfill, and because you're there, because you're around those people, you're hoping to have that success or that happiness or whatever it is rub off on you.
There's what I've learned, and I've had to learn this myself, and I help people learn it now, is I'm not worried about the materialistic stuff today. I literally live out of a backpack. I'm in Colombia, South America right now. I lived out of a backpack for the last 4 years. And so I used to chase the money, and now I'm beyond the money. Obviously, we still need to make money. Money makes life easier, yada, yada, yada. But today I live for my purpose. And so the people that I surround myself with are authentic, right? I look for authentic people. And that doesn't mean they're jerks. That means they know who they are, they know what they're here for, and they live that life with purpose. And so that's who I strive to be, not the person with the fancy car. Not saying fancy cars are bad, none of that stuff is bad, but it's like, I don't live for that. You could take everything away from me and I'd still be happy because I'm happy inside. And that's what I've learned. And one of the turning points of my life was I was working for this company in Chicago, and I was just miserable. And I said, if this is life, I don't care if I live or die, because this life sucks. And I just wanted peace of mind, and I just wanted stillness, because I was a wreck. And so today I strive for peace of mind, I strive for stillness, and I strive to fulfill my purpose. And I strive to be around people like that. And if I'm not around people like that, I feel it. It resonates in me, and I'm not happy. I'm not fulfilled. I'm not because I'm not living my purpose. And so, does that answer your question?
Yeah. So what are there things that you do on a daily, weekly, monthly basis that help to reset you so that you can stay on that path?
Yeah. So I do. I coach twice a week with my coach. I joined a personal development program 12 years ago. It changed my life, and I've never quit. I've always been in a program. I've always been reading books on emotional intelligence. And that was the one thing that I was missing. I was very intellectual, right? Like I was very good at finance. I was very good at the books of it, but I was horrible with people. I didn't understand myself. I was full of anxiety. And so I started learning about myself emotionally. And I read this quote a while back. It says 85% of your success in life is contributed to your emotional intelligence. IQ gets you in the door. EQ, emotional intelligence, actually helps you be successful in life. And so I focus so much on my emotional intelligence. And that looks like, that's like the Tony Robbins type stuff. That's the inner work. We go on retreats, spiritual retreats, and I meet a lot of great people there. That's how I build my community. People looking for the same thing. I just did one this weekend. And so I would say pick up a book and understand yourself. Why do you get mad? Why do you react? Why do you let your emotions control you? Because if you can get through that piece, it's just a matter of taking the action. But I was so overwhelmed with fear and anxiety. And you can be the smartest person in the world, but if you can't push through that and do what you need to do and pick up a phone and call a stranger and create a relationship, you're not going to go very far in life.
And I have to imagine that EQ, that emotional intelligence, really, you talked about building the community, that EQ is kind of the connective bits that hold that community together. And if you're building it with like-minded individuals, then everybody that's there also has a high level or a moderately high level of that emotional intelligence. And that's going to help to build that community even better.
It's like super glue.
Mm-hmm.
Because I get people that were, we used to sell a $23,000 mastermind. I want to learn how to make money, and I want to learn, the IQ stuff of it. And then I start talking about them, and all we do is focus on emotional intelligence, and then they end up winning in life. Their family works, their relationships work, their jobs now work because they know how to handle emotionally. And now that they can do that, guess what? They make more money. because making money is a product of dealing with other people, right? And this was really hard for me to have that, what I call balance sheet wealth. Um, you have to learn how to sell something. Like I'm a finance guy, and as I've proven this over and over again for people that come in our community, the only way to make money is to sell something. There has to be a transaction. Now you can do it with honor and integrity, but unless you're like, and that means there has to be another person involved in your life, and they have to have a problem, and you have to have a solution. And so if you can't create that environment that's inviting and welcoming for another person, they're not going to want to buy anything from you, right? They're not going to trust you, and you're not going to get what you want in life.
And probably the hardest part to that for people to swallow is when you couple that with you attract like-minded people. And so
Right.
if you are that type of person, you're going to be attracting those type of people. And unfortunately, unless you change who you are, you're going to continue to attract those type of people. So you have to make that shift, and then everything kind of falls in place from there.
Yeah, I remember I hired my first personal development coach, and I went to see him. I was part of this mastermind, and they're like, Del Hargis is coming this week. This was like 12, 15 years ago. I still remember it. Is Del Hargis is coming. I go, who's this guy? And he was like, it's personal development. I go, what's that? It's like, what is this? Right? Because where I came from, you either, you didn't talk about it, you go to church, or you drank. I chose drinking and not talking about it. And so I went and I cried for like 4 hours. I sat in the front row because I was just miserable inside. I had the job, I had everything that I was supposed to have, and I was just miserable. And I went up to this guy and I signed up for his coaching program. And I went to the library in Schaumburg, actually. And I go, do you have any books on personal development? And they looked at me really funny and they go, yeah, that whole corner. And I was like, oh my God, this is a thing. This is really a thing. And I picked up a book and I've never put them down. And so I hired his coach. I got on a coaching call and I was complaining about my life and I was complaining about my job. And I've never been talked to like this before. And he goes, Zach, stop blaming everyone else for your lack of success. You're at where you're at because who you are, what you do, and what you don't do. And he just laid into me and like try to wake me up. And I remember my head felt like it was going to pop off because I was like my ego and my like everything wanted to like defend my position and blame it on someone else. And like 5 minutes later, I got through it, and it was one of the most empowering moments of my life. I was like, oh, I don't have to wait. I don't have to wait for the raise. I don't have to wait for permission. I don't have to wait for anything. I can go out and actually get it. And that was one of the first times I really got present to personal responsibility. And so today, one of my 5 principles is personal responsibility. I take responsibility for everything because then I have control. I have power. I can drive the bus to the next stop. And so that's a huge, huge thing I've learned over the years.
Well, yeah, right. And when you're in control, you get to, like you said, you control where it stops at. So to backtrack
Right.
a little bit, you said five principles. That was one of them. Can you share the other ones with us?
So the first one is intention. Second one is personal responsibility. Third one is integrity. Fourth one is dream big. Fifth one's do the work. And so whenever I'm struggling with something or dealing with something, one of those will get me through it, right? One of those will get me through it. So those are things that I share with my company. I share inside of our community, and I teach people those, right? And the first two, I really think they're the most powerful. And I think most people don't have an intention, right? They just sort of like, yeah, I try to have an intention for every second of every moment, right? Because my coach is always like, what's the intention? What's your intention? She just trained me. Um, and then the second one is everything's, personal responsibility. Another way that I look at when I'm on my coaching call, right? It's like, how is this my fault? Right? How is this my fault? Because I can just get through it. Those two, you can knock down, you can get through anything. And then I added integrity, the other three. And, integrity isn't like good or bad. It's, does it work? Right. And so what works in one situation may not work in another situation. Dream big for me, I've reached goal after goal after goal, and I was like, okay, I was depressed after it, and I was hit the next goal, and I was depressed, and hit the next goal, and I was depressed. I hit my life goal is travel the world, help people make money, and I've been traveling we've lived in 24 countries in the last 4 years, and about 2 years ago, I was sitting in Dominican Republic, and I was miserable, and my coach was like, what's going on? And what we discovered was I quit asking what's next. And so I created a life purpose that was big enough to never be fulfilled. And that's what I strive for. I play for every day, and obviously do the work, right? Do the work. You can't, you gotta do the work.
Yes.
That's easy, right?
Yes. All right. So that's fabulous. I love each and every one of those intentions. So I read. I'm a failed on remembering what book it was. High Performers or something like that. The Power of High Performers. Anyways, one of the key things that I took away from that book was to have an intention, right, and to set your intention. And I created that as a practice. So and vocabulistic. I don't think of habits as habits. I think of them as practices, because habit is almost like a dirty word. You set it and forget it. You never have to think about it anymore. That's not how things work. I'm a martial arts instructor, so that's my day job. Started teaching when I was 11.
Oh yeah.
I've been teaching. I'm 36 now, so I've been doing this for a long time. So I think in those type of terms. So practicing something clicks. It makes sense. So if I create an intention to practice something every day, I know that I am going to show up and put the work in, because that's different than what a habit is. And when I heard that intention setting, that was monumental for me, right? So set your intention for whatever it is that you're doing. I have an intention that I set for the overarching for the day, but that's just kind of to get my feet under me as I move through the day. I have a different intention when I sit down to do interviews here. I have a different intention when I sit and eat dinner with my family. When I go to work, all of these different things, and different intentions for each of them, because not that I want to be somebody different, but I want to bring that present focused for whatever it is going on at the moment to it, and with purpose and intent behind it, right? There's a reason for that. So setting intentions, that is wild. And if you're listening to this and you're not setting intentions for, even just an overarching intention for your day, that is something that will certainly change your life, because it brings that purpose and intention to whatever it is that you're doing.
Absolutely. I talk to people, they pay me 20 some $1,000 to come in and join my mastermind. And they're like, let's do this and let's do that. I'm like, where are we taking this? Like, I get you can have an intention for this call, but like, where are we taking this? And they have no idea, right? They have no idea. They have no intention. They have no purpose. They have no goal, whatever, however you want to articulate it, right? There's many different words. And I think that's why most people fail, because they don't have it. They wake up and they just sort of float through life. I mean, there's there are so many sayings about that in brilliant books, but yeah.
And so the next piece that really grabbed me was to dream big. So the big thing is SMART goals, right? Everybody's heard of a SMART goal: specific, measurable, time, all those things. I think that probably is failing more people, or setting people up for failure more often than not. Because one of the constraints that SMART goals has is it has to be something that is attainable. I mean, if it's attainable, that means that probably you're not moving outside of your comfort zone very far or at all to actually reach and attain this thing, right? And that's where they achieve these things and they're like, oh, well, that's it. I guess I'm it.
Totally
So
unfulfilled.
unfulfilled. Yeah, exactly. So treating those SMART goals as milestones on your overarching goal. So a concept that I heard a ways ago, and I have adopted this now, is to have an end goal. An end goal is something you want to end up in life with. Like, I can't set a goal to be happy, right? What does happy mean? I can't, and then on top of that, I can't say, okay, great, I achieved happy today. I can check that off my list. All right, I'm done now. Nope, but that can be an end goal. I want to be happy in life, and I can have all kinds of things that means to me. And then those SMART goals, the measurable part of it, is when I go in and I measure. and I time bound those things. So I measure them. All right, great. I time bound them every 6 months, every month, or whatever it is. I go in and check on that. Okay, great. This is progress towards that end goal, right? That end goal, that super huge, big, overarching thing that hopefully you end up in life with, right? You want to have something that is stretching you. Because if you stay inside your comfort, I think of the comfort zone like your alarm clock in the morning. The alarm clock goes off in the morning. How many people reach and hit the snooze? Right? They want to stay inside that comfortable little bubble that they're in, warm and cozy and under the covers, right? But if you do that, if you stay there all day, you don't get anywhere. You don't do anything, right? You're
Right.
just a blob, right? So you have to go past your comfort zone. You have to push and do something that is outside, something that isn't quite attainable for you right now, so that you can be and move and be on the path to achieve something that you wouldn't have otherwise been. Because otherwise, you're going to be right here today where you are today, tomorrow, next week, next year. You never grow, you never change, never move.
Yeah, I mean, I've discovered that, right? Because I had my first goal was to get my dream job working for one of the best finance companies in the world. Check that off, miserable. My next job was quit this dream job. Check that off, miserable. My next job was, I make enough money where I didn't have to work. Check that off, miserable. It was just like, what what's next? And so today I live and strive every day in my purpose. And my purpose is to empower people to live an amazing life in all aspects of their life. And what we're doing is, I mean, I used to sell 20 plus $1,000 programs. I give it all away now. I just give it all away. I think education is because I've traveled so much. I've seen so much of the world. And I've seen that education is the thing that separates socioeconomic classes. I don't care what your skin color is. I don't care what your ethnicity is. I don't care what country you live in. It's education. And I'm like, I'm here to make a difference in the world. And so I think education should be free. And so I'm starting with it. And so we're creating the Learn and Grow Rich University. We're doing something called the partnership program. We actually kicked it off this week. And so where we actually bring my students into my businesses and we teach them how to run a business through our business models. Um, and it's the same material that we give away. And so I want to teach these kids and these people that need the finances how to make money, how to increase their worth, and it's through education. And so, I want a class in every country. I think churches and schools are such a huge thing to bring an impact in this world. Emotional intelligence, and so that's what I strive for today. And it's a never ending conversation, right? It's something that I'll never completely fulfill on because there's always new people being born that need work, right?
Yeah. Well, and
Yeah.
on top of that, we go to school and we're taught things, quote unquote.
Hmm.
But much of the things that you learn in school are not useful outside of those walls. Even if you go to college and you go for a specific thing and then you get that job as that specific thing, half, give or take, of the things that you learned in school, you're not using, right? Because either it's
Right.
out of date or it was structured for the classroom or it just is not helpful for you to have on the day to day. And so by
Yeah, I
bringing
can.
those people in and giving them an opportunity to see what your business model is like, give them an opportunity to be hands-on with that. I'm a very hands-on type of learning type of person. Like I'm kinesthetic and visual type of person. So sitting in a classroom doesn't work for me anyways. And some people, I get that works with them. But I think that probably most, if not all, work related skills you can learn on the job, with the exception of maybe doctors and stuff like that.
Right. I mean, that's what I'm doing. I'm taking people that don't know anything about finance, don't know. So I created a business framework, and we use all of this in our consulting, our high-end consulting. It's called FASM: finance, operation, sales, and marketing. It's the four components of a business I broke down. Then we have personal development and leadership inside of that, or on top of that. And I'm teaching everyone about finance. And so I have a $10,000 software I created. I used to do financial modeling. I still do it, but that's what I was trained in. I just give it away, right? And then I have all of the people that go through my school or my partnership program. I teach them how to use my financial projection model. We're projecting 5 years out on a monthly basis. I'm teaching them how to market. The first thing they have to learn in my partnership program is how to market. it's the thing people struggle with. They're brilliant ideas, brilliant people. They don't know how to promote themselves. They don't know how to get the message out. They don't know how to have a sales conversation where there's an agreement for exchange of money. And so I start everyone off with marketing. And then I let them come in and we teach them the FASA model. Then they get to choose, like, what do you want to focus on? Do you want to focus on finance, operations, sales, or marketing, personal development, or leadership? And then they can go excel at that, but they have the skill set of marketing and promotion so that they can promote whatever it is that they're doing in life. And so they're actually learning real world skills.
And what ages are you having go through that type of program?
Right now, as I look at it, we literally just kicked it off this week. They're, I got 40s to 60s,
Okay.
right? And the reason I chose that is they do have some real world experience. This is my first go at it, right? The partnership program. I just started giving away all of my content for free about a year ago, and I quit selling the high ticket stuff. It wasn't effective for people. And so now what I do is I give it all away. We have $97 a month masterminds inside of our Learn and Grow Rich campus. And I treat it just like a school, like a college. It's like, what are you doing this semester? Right? This isn't a 30-day boot camp. This is a lifelong conversation, right? What are you doing this semester? What are you building the next one? And we've created that framework. And eventually I want to start opening it up for kids, right? Because they have the capacity. And so that's why I give it all away, because the same framework that I use in my $20,000 a month private consulting, I give away because I want them to learn the framework. Because I want them to work with me. I want them to be my clients. I have to hire people, might as well hire people that are skilled or trained on my process. And so I've created that whole ecosystem, that community, and then they can train each other because we're all working on the same blueprint.
So I heard Jordan Peterson. I'm sure you know Jordan Peterson.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
So
totally.
Jordan Peterson was having a conversation with, I'm going to fail to remember this person. They were talking about the school system, and this other person, I'll put it in the show notes to make sure that if anybody's going back to listen to it, who that person is. But he was talking about the school system and how he redesigned what the school system was, because the school system that we have today was put in place by J.D. Rockefeller. It was really not benefiting us as to learn this information. It was benefiting him. He needed people to work in factories, and so that's what they did, right? Um, so the really interesting part that I took away from that conversation was he has kind of a somatic type of school that he set up, where the older kids help to teach and lead the younger kids. Right? They start with some open-ended questions. They have these kind of debates in the classrooms at a relatively young age, 13, 11, something like that. They're going in, they say, okay, what do you want to be? Okay, I want to be a lawyer. I want to be, a business professional, whatever it is. They go and shadow those people that are doing those jobs. Right? I want to be a lawyer.
That's
Okay,
ex-
great. Yeah, right.
that's exactly what I'm creating,
Exactly.
right? Yeah,
And doing that
yeah.
at such a young age, then they get an idea of what the day-to-day is like. Is this something I actually want to do or not? Yes, no, maybe. Do I need to change? Yes, no, maybe. But the piece that you just talked about was when it comes time for them to hire somebody, right? Are we going to hire this new person that's never been here before, that their resume looks okay? Or are we going to hire this kid that's been here since he was 12 years old? I know he knows how to do this stuff. He's already been doing it. Yeah, we're going to hire that kid because he's already been here. And I didn't go through a school system like that, quote unquote, but in my day job, I started training martial arts at 11. I was helping assist the class at 12 or 13. I got a work permit from school when I was 14. And so I went through that type of process for myself. Now I don't own the school, but I run the school. I'm the day-to-day operations manager. I teach all the classes. I write the lesson plans. I manage the teaching team, the whole. So I went from nothing to just a student all the way through because I went through that type of process. So that process that you're describing absolutely works. I know because I went through that process. I can see the value in that, and I can imagine the benefit that would have for somebody else.
Yeah, and I mean it. I grew up in a small town in Indiana. I didn't know. All my friends were farm kids. I mean, that's what we did, and so I didn't have the relationship capital. I didn't have the pedigree of. I wanted to be private equity, hedge fund, high finance world, and that's a was a big task. And so today I want it to be like, I don't care where you're from. I don't care what you have in your checkbook or your bank account. I don't care who your last name is. Do you have the will and the grit to push through hard stuff? And so the people I hire today, we do a lot of international hires. And so the people I hire today, like they have had to overcome tremendous obstacles. I don't even know where they graduated. Real frankly, I don't think a lot of them went to business school, but they have the will to keep going in life and they have the grit to make it through really, really hard things and figure it out. That's what I look for. And so, because I can teach the educational, intellectual stuff, it's super hard to teach that will and that grit. And that I just want to create an environment and a community for that. And then, like you said, the student becomes a teacher, and then they can work for me. They can teach in my school, our university, or whatever. I'm trying to find the right name for it and be politically correct, right? Um, or we can partner with them. Like if they want to start their own business, I'll partner, or they can go out on their own. Like they can do whatever they want. But what I look for is the whole reason I created Learn and Grow Rich. I was actually in a 3 day survival um, trip in Brazil. So we went in, me and two guides went into the Amazon, deep into the Amazon, like a whole day on a boat and truck. And we just plunk her down on the piece of land and we're hacking our campsite down. I go, where is this rainforest problem? It looks pretty great down here. Like, I mean, it's flush, everything. And he goes, oh, it's on the other side of the state. He goes, the ranchers are cutting down the rainforest to raise cattle for the Asia market. They love the beef from down here. And I go, okay, cool. I started thinking to myself, I said, how, economics, I'm a finance economics guy. I go, how big of a check would I have to write for them to stop raising the cattle? And how big of a check would I have to write for them to stop eating the meat? Right. And then it was like, well, okay. Well, how big of a check would I have to write to house the homeless? How big of a check would I have to write to feed the hungry? How big of a check for clean drinking? How big of a, all these things that just help people have like a stable life. And I called it, I'm like, oh my God, that would be a great project. And because I know I'm in so many programs, I'm like, oh, projects and programs, sort of how you see life. I go, how could I fund this? I'm like, oh, the program. What's the program? Teach people how to make money. So instead of me making money, me and my wife and writing checks, the whole idea behind Learn and Grow Rich is I want to teach people how to make money. And then I want to teach them the value of giving. Right. We even have a game. It's called the game of giving. It's I give consulting away. I give CRMs away based on how much people give to whatever it is in their life. And so now the idea is I'm developing these people to have a great life for them and showing them how to give to get. And so we have people writing checks and making a difference all over the world right now.
That's a wonderful, I would say, initiative.
Yeah.
But that's a wonderful initiative. And so I'm sure you've heard of Zig Ziglar. Zig Ziglar has a quote, and I heard this, I think it was in high school. I was getting Zig Ziglar tapes from my boss, and I was driving from Shabance at the time, which is about 25 minutes south from where I was working at. So I had a 25-minute trip to work in high school. I would, in my car, listen to Zig Ziglar on the way to and from work. No music, none of the other. I would listen. That was my jam, Zig Ziglar. So I heard him say this early on, and I latched onto this. He said, "You can have anything in life you want if you just help enough other people get what they want."
Oh yeah.
And that's exactly what you're talking about right there. That's it.
Right. Boy.
Now I want to backtrack just a little bit because I do have a question. Yeah. You talked about you want to hire the people that have grit, have the ability to work hard. What type of process do you bring people through to find those candidates, to find out if they have what it takes to do those things?
A lot of the people that I would say every person that I've hired in the last 3 years have been somebody that worked for me recommended. And one of the most the things I'm most proud about is I've never had anybody quit in any of my job or in any of my businesses. And because I take really great care of people and I take them through the same process, we call it vision to reality. Same process as my clients, same process I teach on. It's where are you? Where do you want to go? Create a plan to get there, get your budget and your finances in order, implement the plan. Very systematic thinking, right? Framework. And so when I meet with people that work for me, I'm like, where do you want to go in life? Right? What do you want? And then I sit down and I help them, get a really clear vision on it. And I help them create a budget and I say, how much money do you want? I don't care. Like you want to make 100 grand a month? I don't care. I will find a way. I will show you the activity that you have to do to make that. Because I never had that, right? Everyone was like, well, hold on, Zach, slow down, slow down. I was like, no, I want to speed up. Like, don't slow me down. That was sort of why I got depressed. And so I want to encourage people to grow. And so, I'm really, because I coach people. I mean, as a business guy, all I deal with is people. So I'm a really good read on. And so I meet with them and I understand their goals and their vision. And I look at like, I just ask them like, what's some of the hardest things you've ever had to do? And like my director of operations right now, she got sent, she's from Colombia. She actually lives down the road from me down here in Medellin. And I was like, what's the hardest thing you've ever had to do? And she's like, oh, well, I got sent to the United States. I didn't know English and I had a month worth of money. I was like, okay. She goes, yeah, I lived there for 6 years.
Wow. Impressive.
Right. So she figured it out. I have other people from Venezuela. They had to leave Venezuela and figure out how to like actually like this is like survival, right? Figure out, so things like that. And I'm like, if they have the capacity to figure stuff out like that, they can figure out my stuff for my businesses.
Well, and that's extraordinary. Extraordinary. That's amazing to have people like that. They have been through the life experiences like that, and that really does show that they have what it takes to put the work in. And
Right.
when you invest in your people, then the business grows, right? And
Right.
that could be whether you're helping them make more money, if you're helping them in personal development or helping them, on whatever venture it is that they want to do. When you invest in your people, they become invested in you, right? And they'll put the work in for whatever it is that you ask them to do, which is something that gets glossed over from most businesses nowadays, right? They miss out on that piece, that EQ, like we talked about earlier, right? It's just completely gone. And they're like, oh, well, you have to come work for me because you have to, like, I signed you up for this job and, you have to be here. But it's that piece of the puzzle isn't there anymore. And I don't know what it looks like to bring that back for, the standard. But that's sorely missing from today's society.
Yeah, I know it was missing for me. Like I didn't have a training and development program. I actually, one of my first corporate jobs as the evaluation consultant, I wanted to go get my CVA, I wanted to go get my CFA. And my mentor, the owner, she's like, slow down, Zach, you're not ready. And I was like, how am I going to get ready? Like, let's give me some. And I just studied. I picked up, but it was my choice. Like a there wasn't a training and development program for me. I just started walking around the office picking up books. I'm like, what's this? Oh, well, let me read this. Let me consume this, and just start reading. So there wasn't like a path for me. And so for the people today, I literally create a rail for them. Like, what do you want to get developed in? Do you want to get developed in sales, marketing, finance, or operations? Sort of the things. Do you want to be a leader? Do you want to be an operator? Do you not like people? Do you want, like, and then I can build the business around their skill sets and around their personality. And what I love about it today is they have their own business. That's how sort of the context that I've created. And so when they go to work every day, they're not getting up to go to work for Zach and Sumari, which is my wife. They're getting up to go to work for their job, for their business, for their goals, because they know if they hit this benchmark, they get to travel the world and go on roller coasters. We have one of our people that love that. My director of operations right now, she just took off yesterday. She's going on a 2-week trip in Europe, right? I have people that work for me that have never flew on a plane. They started working for me a year and a half later. They've been on 11 flights around the right because I want them to push through their fear, right? I want them to strive for their goals because that's what we tell our clients to do. And so when they're meeting with my team, the conversation is, yeah, let's go through it. I've been where you're at. This is what it looks like. It's scary, but just take the next step. I promise you. Right?
Yeah, it is refreshing to hear you talk like that because that means that there's hope that other people are running businesses that are like this because that
Yeah.
is wonderful. Um, yeah, amazing.
Yeah.
So Zach, I gotta say thank you. Thank you for sharing such a remarkable journey. Your insights have been amazing. Before we wrap up, do you have any key thoughts or final takeaways you'd like to leave our audience with?
Um, oh my God, I could say all day, but here's the key takeaway. If you take those my two principles, or you can have all five of them if you want, but if you just take the first two and intention and personal responsibility, you can have anything you want in your life. And the only thing that's going to hold you back is fear. Everything boils down to fear. Fear of what people are going to think of you, fear of looking stupid, fear of failure, fear of something. And so, I just went through a retreat this weekend and it was super scary. And guess what? I pushed through it because I surrounded myself with great people that have also been through really scary stuff. And I got to the other side and I started laughing. I go, oh my God, that was all just made up in my head. It's all just made up in my head. Right. And so surround yourself with great people who are also pushing through the fear and really living a great life and a big life and learn from them. Let it in. Let it in. Let them be a contribution to you.
Well, thank you. And where can our listeners go if they wanted to find out more about you?
Yeah, so all of my master classes are free. I do a free mastermind. I have free software. We do free demos on the software. We have free tests. All of that stuff can be found at learnandgrowrich.net.
Very good. And I'll be sure to leave that in the show notes for that. Zach, thanks again for being a part of the show. And listeners, until next time, this is Chris Bean signing off.